My name is Clarinda. I'm 34 years old, and my world collapsed the moment I found those condoms and that small pill tucked in my husband's pocket. 7 years of marriage, and I never once doubted Marcus until that moment. His strange behavior those late nights, the secretive phone calls. Suddenly, it all made terrible sense. With shaking hands, I quietly gathered evidence, never knowing it would lead to police officers placing handcuffs on my husband's wrists. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, what happened next changed my entire life forever. Seattle in the springtime is magical. That's where I met Marcus at a technology conference 7 years ago. I was there representing my graphic design company, showcasing some interface designs for a new app. He approached my booth with confidence, asked intelligent questions, and somehow managed to make me laugh despite my professional demeanor. Dark hair with premature silver at the temples, intelligent brown eyes, and a smile that made the crowded conference hall feel intimate. By the end of the conference, we had exchanged numbers. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant overlooking the Puget Sound. I remember the candlelight reflecting in his eyes as he told me about his ambitions as a sales director for a software company. 2 glasses of wine in, I found myself sharing my dreams of expanding my freelance business into a full design agency someday. He listened intently, asked thoughtful questions. Not once did he check his phone or glance around the restaurant, something rare in today's distracted world. The dating period was like a beautiful dream. Weekend trips to the Olympic Peninsula, cooking together in my tiny apartment kitchen, long conversations about everything from childhood memories to future aspirations. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on a ferry crossing from Seattle to Bainbridge Island, the skyline glittering behind us like something from a fairy tale. Our wedding was small, but perfect. Just 60 guests, an outdoor ceremony at a winery in eastern Washington. I wore a simple white dress with delicate lace details. Marcus cried when I walked down the aisle, something his friends teased him about good-naturedly during the reception. My father, who had been skeptical of Marcus, at first gave a touching speech about how happy he was to welcome him to our family. After the honeymoon in Hawaii, we settled into married life with ease. We bought our first house together, a charming craftsman with a large backyard in a quiet neighborhood. I converted one of the bedrooms into a home office for my design work, while Marcus continued climbing the corporate ladder at his company. We discussed having children someday, but agreed to wait until we were more financially stable. Our careers flourished side by side. My freelance graphic design business gained more clients, allowing me to be selective about the projects I took on. Marcus received promotion after promotion, eventually becoming the regional sales director for the entire Pacific Northwest. We celebrated each success together, champagne for the big wins, takeout, and movies for the smaller ones. Our life was filled with beautiful moments. Last summer, we took a road trip to the Grand Canyon. I still remember standing at the rim as the sun set, watching the colors change across the vast landscape, Marcus's arm around my waist. For our most recent anniversary, he surprised me with a weekend at the same winery where we got married. We drank wine on the terrace and reminisced about our wedding day, making plans for the next 5 years together. Both our families loved our partnership. My parents would visit every few months, and my mother and Marcus would spend hours cooking together in the kitchen. His parents lived further away, but we made the trip to visit them during holidays. His mother treated me like the daughter she never had, always sending me home with containers of homemade food and knitted gifts. Our daily routine was comfortable and secure. Mornings started with coffee together before work. Whoever got home first would start dinner. Weekends were for house projects, meeting friends, or just relaxing together. We had date nights every Friday, taking turns to choose the restaurant or activity. I trusted Marcus completely. When he traveled for work, I never worried about what he might be doing. Our relationship was solid, built on honesty and mutual respect. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back now, there were small signs I should have noticed earlier. Occasional text messages that made him step outside to answer. Late nights at the office becoming more frequent. The subtle change in how he responded when I asked about his day. But when you trust someone, really trust them, your mind finds innocent explanations for these things. He's working hard on that big client. He's stressed about meeting sales targets. He's planning another surprise for me. That trust is what makes betrayal so devastating. It's not just the acts themselves, but the shattering of the reality you thought you were living in. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, I had no reason to doubt the life we had built together. No reason to question the man who held me every night and promised me forever. The changes began so gradually that I almost didn't notice them. It started with Marcus's work schedule becoming increasingly unpredictable. For years, he had maintained consistent hours, leaving at 7:30 in the morning and returning by 6 in the evening. Occasionally, he would have dinner with clients, but he always let me know in advance. Then came the late nights. Once a week at first, then twice, then 3 times. "Big project," he would explain, loosening his tie as he walked through the door at 9 or 10 at night. "The team is pushing hard to land this account." I believed him because I had no reason not to. Next were the business trips. Marcus had always traveled for work, but suddenly the frequency doubled. Chicago one week, Phoenix the next, Dallas after that. Short notice became the norm. "They need me in Boston tomorrow," he would say, hastily packing a suitcase while I stood in the doorway trying not to show my disappointment. "How long this time?" I would ask, already knowing the answer would be vague. 2 days, maybe 3. Depends how the meetings go." He would kiss me quickly before rushing out the door. I noticed other changes too. New clothes appeared in his closet, more stylish and expensive than what he usually wore. A new cologne replaced the one I had given him for his birthday. He began working out more intensely at the gym, coming home with protein shakes and talking about his new personal trainer, Jason. His phone became an extension of his hand, and more concerning, a closely guarded possession. Marcus had always been open with his device. We knew each other's passwords, not because we snooped, but because we had nothing to hide. Then one day, I picked up his phone to check the weather while mine was charging. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp as he snatched the phone from my hand. "Just checking the forecast," I replied, startled by his reaction. "Sorry," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "Work stuff, confidential client information." Later that day, I noticed he had changed his password. These changes created a subtle shift in our daily interactions. The easy conversations we once had became stilted. Marcus asked fewer questions about my day. When I shared stories about difficult clients or design challenges, his responses became generic, distracted. "That sounds tough," he would say, eyes on his phone. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." Small arguments erupted over nothing. The dishwasher loaded incorrectly, bills paid late, plans changed without proper communication. In isolation, each disagreement was minor, easily attributed to stress or busy schedules. Together, they formed a pattern that made my stomach churn with unease. I tried talking to him about it one evening. We were sitting on the couch, the television on, but neither of us watching. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "You seem distant lately." Marcus sighed, rubbing his eyes. "Just work stress. This quarter's targets are brutal." "Is there something more?" I pressed. "You know you can talk to me about anything." "There's nothing to talk about, Clarinda." His tone was final, closing the conversation before it began. That weekend, I met my best friend Stephanie for coffee. We had known each other since college, and she had been my maid of honor at the wedding. After 20 minutes of catching up, she gave me a concerned look. "What's wrong? You're not yourself today." The question broke something inside me, and words poured out. The late nights, the trips, the password change, the emotional distance. Stephanie listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. Clarinda, I hate to say this, but these are classic signs of cheating. No, I shook my head firmly. Not Marcus. We have a good marriage. He wouldn't do that to me. People change, she said gently. Men especially can do unexpected things when their ego needs stroking, or they face a midlife crisis. He's 36, not 50, I argued. And our sex life is fine. We're trying for a baby, for goodness sake. Stephanie didn't push, but her words planted a seed of doubt that took root in my mind. That night, I waited up for Marcus, who had texted to say he was working late again. At 11:30, I heard his key in the lock. Hey, I called from the living room as he entered. Long day? He looked startled to see me still awake. Yeah, client dinner ran long. Why are you still up? Couldn't sleep. I lied. How was the restaurant? Good, expensive steakhouse downtown. The client was impressed. Which one? I asked casually. Marcus hesitated just a fraction too long. The new place on Fifth Avenue. I nodded, not letting my face show what I knew the new steakhouse on Fifth had been closed for renovations all week. I had walked past it just that afternoon. That was the first concrete lie I caught Marcus in, and it broke something fundamental in our relationship. Trust is like a mirror. Once it's cracked, you can never look at it the same way again. It was an ordinary Tuesday when I found them. Marcus had left for work, and I was gathering laundry from the hamper in our bathroom. As I sorted through the clothes, I reached into the pocket of his slacks, checking for loose change or receipts, as I always did before washing. My fingers touched something smooth and square. Pulling it out, I found myself staring at a condom packet. Time seemed to stop. We didn't use condoms. We were trying for a baby. There was absolutely no reason for Marcus to have a condom in his pocket. None. With trembling fingers, I continued searching the pocket and found something else, a small white pill, in a tiny plastic bag. No label, no identification. Just a pill that looked similar to aspirin, but smaller. I sat on the bathroom floor, the evidence of my husband's betrayal in my palm. The room spun around me as my mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Was he having an affair? Multiple affairs. What was the pill for? After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. I forced myself to think rationally. Confronting Marcus immediately would only lead to denials, maybe even gaslighting. If he was willing to betray our marriage, he would certainly be willing to lie about it. No, I needed more evidence. With shaking hands, I took photos of the condom and the pill with my phone. Then, making a split-second decision, I returned them to his pocket. Let him think his secret was still safe. I would use the time to gather more information. That evening, I acted as normal as possible when Marcus came home. I served dinner, asked about his day, even managed to laugh at his jokes. All while feeling like I was performing in some terrible play, reciting lines that no longer made sense in a story I didn't recognize. After Marcus fell asleep, I quietly got up and took his wallet from his nightstand. Inside, I found several receipts he hadn't bothered to dispose of. A restaurant I had never heard of. A hotel bar downtown with a substantial charge. A jewelry store with a purchase of $400, though I had received no jewelry recently. I photographed each receipt before carefully returning them to their exact position in his wallet. The next morning, I waited until Marcus left for work, then logged into our online banking. We had maintained separate accounts as well as a joint account for household expenses. I had never felt the need to check his personal account before, but now I logged in, using the password I knew from helping him set it up years ago. The transactions told a damning story. Regular withdrawals of cash, always between $200 and $500. Charges at restaurants and bars on nights he had told me he was working late. Hotel charges when he was supposedly out of town for business. And most alarmingly, 3 separate payments to a pharmacy I had never heard of. I documented everything, downloading the statements and highlighting suspicious transactions. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I ordered a small GPS tracker online, paying for express shipping. When the tracker arrived the next day, I waited for Marcus to leave for work, then went to the garage. With a sickening feeling in my stomach, I attached the device under his car, following the instructions carefully. The tracker connected to an app on my phone, allowing me to see his movements in real time. For the next week, I watched as the icon representing my husband's car traveled to places that weren't his office. A residential address in an upscale neighborhood across town. A motel off the highway. A bar in a part of town he had no business being in. Each location stayed on the screen like an accusation, each one driving the knife deeper into my heart. During this time, I contacted a private investigator. The woman who answered my call, Janet Wilson, had a kind voice that belied her profession. I explained my situation without breaking down, surprising myself with my composure. "This happens more often than you think, Mrs. Wilson," she assured me. "We'll get you the information you need." 3 days later, Janet sent me an encrypted email with her preliminary findings. Marcus had been observed meeting 3 different women in the span of a week. The report included photos taken with a telephoto lens. Marcus with his hand on a blonde woman's lower back as they entered a hotel. Marcus sharing wine with a redhead at an intimate restaurant. Marcus kissing a brunette in the front seat of his car. I stared at these images of my husband, this stranger, who wore his face, and felt my world collapse around me. But still, something didn't add up. The pill, the frequency, the patterns. This seemed more calculated than a typical affair, or even multiple affairs. My suspicions grew when I accidentally overheard Marcus on the phone late one night. I had gone to bed early with a headache, but woke around midnight and realized he hadn't joined me. Walking quietly toward his home office, I heard his voice low and intimate. "Don't worry about it," he was saying. "She doesn't suspect anything. Just take the pill before we meet. It makes everything more intense." I froze outside the door, my hand over my mouth to stifle any sound. "Next Tuesday works," he continued. "The usual place. I'll bring everything we need. And hey, I got you something special this time. A little token of appreciation." I crept back to bed, my mind racing. The pill he had been carrying wasn't for him. It was for the women he was meeting. What exactly was he giving them, and why? The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. As soon as Marcus left, I began a thorough search of our house. I looked in places I had never thought to check before: the crawl space in the attic, behind books on shelves, inside board game boxes we rarely used. In the garage inside a locked toolbox. I opened with the spare key. I found a small case containing more pills similar to the one I had discovered, along with several condoms, and most disturbingly, a small digital camera. With dread weighing my stomach like lead, I turned it on. The memory card contained several videos, but I couldn't bring myself to watch them. Whatever Marcus was doing, it had gone far beyond mere infidelity. I was no longer just a betrayed wife. I was potentially witnessing something criminal. The morning after discovering the camera, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not a divorce attorney, but a criminal lawyer named Alicia Morgan, recommended by a client of mine who had gone through a similarly complex situation. Alicia's office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. The woman herself matched her surroundings, sharp polished with an air of contained power. She listened without interrupting as I laid out what I had discovered so far, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "Mrs. Wilson," she said when I finished, "what you're describing goes beyond infidelity. Based on what you've found, particularly the unidentified pills and hidden camera, I'm concerned your husband may be engaging in criminal activity." "What kind of criminal activity?" I asked, though part of me already suspected. Potentially drugging women without their knowledge or consent, she replied bluntly. The combination of the pills, the pattern of meeting different women, the camera, these raise serious red flags. What should I do? My voice sounded distant, as if someone else was speaking. Continue gathering evidence, but carefully. Don't confront him yet. Don't let him know you're aware of anything unusual. And Clarinda, she leaned forward, her eyes intense. Be extremely careful with those pills. Don't touch them without gloves. Don't taste them. We need to find out what they are. I left her office with a plan. First, I would send one of the pills to a private lab for analysis using the service Alicia recommended. Second, I would continue monitoring Marcus's movements and communications. And third, I would back up every piece of evidence in multiple secure locations. That weekend, while Marcus was supposedly at a golf tournament with colleagues, I used the opportunity to access his laptop. He had always been careful with his work computer, but his personal laptop was less protected. I found the password on a sticky note, hidden inside a book in his nightstand. A careless security mistake I was grateful for. What I discovered made me physically ill. There was a hidden folder buried deep in the file system, encrypted, but accessible with the same password. Inside were conversations with numerous women dating back over 2 years, almost the entirety of our marriage. The messages followed a pattern: charming introduction, rapid escalation arrangements to meet often with mentions of something to help you relax, or a little enhancement for our time together. More disturbing were the photographs stored in subfolders labeled with women's names. Many showed women who appeared disoriented or partially conscious. In some, Marcus was visible. The timestamps showed some pictures taken as recently as the previous week. I forced myself to document everything, taking screenshots and copying files to an encrypted drive Alicia had provided. Each image, each message was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. Another piece of evidence pointing to something far darker than I had initially feared. While searching through the laptop, I also discovered receipts for purchases I hadn't seen before. Expensive jewelry items sent to different addresses, hotel bookings under aliases, and rideshare receipts for late-night pickups from bars and clubs. The most damning discovery came when I found a notes app with entries detailing what appeared to be a system, names of women, locations where he had met them, notes about their drinks of choice, their susceptibility to certain conversation topics, and disturbingly ratings of their compliance and memory issues after meetings. One entry read, Jennifer 28, bartender at the Anchor. 2 drinks max before agreeable. Prefers vodka sodas. Responded well to career advancement talk. No recollection of later events. Potential repeat. I stared at the screen, no longer able to deny what I was seeing. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted, was methodically drugging women to take advantage of them. He was documenting it. He was proud of it. While the laptop was still open, I discovered a hidden social media account under a pseudonym. Marcus had created an entirely different persona, presenting himself as a wealthy bachelor working in venture capital. Through this account, he connected with women, built rapport, and arranged meetings. There were dozens of conversations in various stages, from initial contact to planned meetups. By the time I finished my investigation of his computer, I felt contaminated, as if his depravity had somehow transferred to me through the screen. I carefully returned everything to its original state, closed the laptop, and placed it exactly where I had found it. That night, I took the longest shower of my life, scrubbing my skin until it was raw, trying to wash away the knowledge of who I had been sleeping beside for years. How had I missed it? How had I failed to see the monster behind the mask of the man I thought I knew? The lab results came back 3 days later. The pill was a combination of Rohypnol and another sedative commonly known as a date rape drug. It confirmed my worst fears and provided the final piece of evidence I needed. I returned to Alicia's office with everything I had gathered: the GPS tracking data, the private investigator's report, the screenshots from his computer, the lab results. She reviewed it all with a grim expression. "This is substantial evidence of premeditated criminal activity," she said finally. "Clarinda, we need to take this to the police." Alicia arranged a meeting with Detective Amy Rodriguez at the police station. The detective was a woman in her 40s with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to see through pretense. Her handshake was firm, her manner direct. "Mrs. Wilson, I understand this is extremely difficult," she said as we sat in a small private room. "But I need you to walk me through everything you've discovered in chronological order if possible." For the next 2 hours, I presented my evidence, starting with the condom and pill I had found in Marcus's pocket and ending with the lab results. Detective Rodriguez took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. She reviewed the screenshots, the photos from the private investigator, the GPS data, and the lab report. "This is an extensive case," she said when I finished. "You've been very thorough in your documentation, which helps us immensely." "What happens now?" I asked, exhaustion suddenly washing over me. "We open an official investigation," she replied. "This will involve surveillance of your husband, possibly wiretaps with court approval, and eventually interviews with potential victims identified from your evidence." "Will you arrest him immediately?" "Not yet," she said. "We need to build a solid case that will hold up in court. Rushing to arrest him now might jeopardize the prosecution. It's crucial that he doesn't know he's being investigated." "So I have to continue living with him?" The thought made my skin crawl. "For a short time, yes," Detective Rodriguez said sympathetically. "I know that's asking a lot, but it's important for the case. Can you maintain normal behavior around him?" I thought about the women in those photos, their vulnerable, unconscious faces. I thought about potential future victims if Marcus wasn't stopped. "Yes," I said firmly. "I can do whatever is necessary to make sure he faces justice." She nodded. "We'll move as quickly as we can. In the meantime, if you feel unsafe at any point, don't hesitate to call emergency services immediately." The next few weeks were the most difficult of my life. I continued to live with Marcus, to share meals with him, to engage in normal conversation. I invented excuses to avoid physical intimacy, claiming menstrual cramps, headaches, or exhaustion from work projects. Each time I watched his face, carefully looking for signs of suspicion. Marcus did begin to notice changes in my behavior despite my best efforts. "You seem distant lately," he commented one evening as we ate dinner. "Is everything okay at work? Just a stressful project?" I lied, forcing a smile. "The client keeps changing their mind about the design direction." He nodded, seemingly accepting my explanation, but I caught him watching me more carefully after that. He began calling during the day to check in, something he rarely did before. He surprised me by coming home early several times, perhaps hoping to catch me in some revealing activity. Once, he picked up my phone when a text came through while I was in the shower. When I emerged, he was standing there holding it, a casual smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. "Your phone kept buzzing," he said, handing it to me. "Thought it might be important." I checked the screen, quickly relieved to see it was just a notification from a design forum I belonged to. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice light. "Just work stuff." The closest call came when Marcus came home unexpectedly while I was on the phone with Detective Rodriguez. I heard his key in the lock and quickly ended the call with a hurried, "Gotta go," before he entered the kitchen. "Who was that?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. "Stephanie," I lied smoothly. "She's having problems with her boyfriend again." Marcus frowned slightly. "I thought they broke up." My heart raced. I had forgotten that detail from a story I had told him weeks ago. "They got back together," I improvised. Probably a mistake, considering how he is. He seemed to accept this, but later that evening, I caught him scrolling through my recent calls. I had been careful to delete any communications with Detective Rodriguez and Alicia, but his attempted snooping sent a clear message he was getting suspicious. 2 days later, Detective Rodriguez called while I was at a coffee shop away from home. "We've made significant progress," she said. "We've identified 3 victims willing to come forward. They recognized your husband from photographs and confirmed he gave them drinks that made them disoriented and unable to clearly remember what happened afterward." "Have you tested the pills?" I asked. "Yes, they match the sample you provided. We've also obtained warrants for his electronic communications and banking records. The evidence is mounting. We should be ready to move within the week." "He's getting suspicious," I warned her. "He's been checking my phone coming home unexpectedly." "Stay calm," she advised. "We're almost there. Just a few more days." Those few days felt like years. I moved through them like an actress in a play performing the role of unsuspecting wife while internally counting the minutes until it would be over. I wore a mask of normalcy that threatened to crack with every shared meal, every casual conversation about the future we would never have. Finally, on a Thursday morning, Detective Rodriguez called. "We're ready," she said. "The arrest will happen today. Are you going to be home?" "No," I replied. "I have client meetings until evening." "Good. We'll take him into custody at your residence when he returns from work. We have officers watching the house now. When it's done, I'll call you." I spent the day in a daze, unable to focus on my client presentations, checking my phone constantly. At 4:30, the call finally came. "We have him in custody," Detective Rodriguez said. "He was arrested without incident. You can come home now. There will be officers there if you want to collect some personal belongings." As I drove home, I felt hollow rather than triumphant. The man I had loved, the life I had built, all of it, had been a carefully constructed illusion. Now it lay in ruins around me. And though justice was being served, I still had to find a way to rebuild from the ashes. I will never forget the sight of Marcus being led out of our home in handcuffs. As I pulled into the driveway, 2 police officers were escorting him to a waiting patrol car. His face when he saw me transformed from confusion to rage. "Clarinda!" he shouted, struggling against the officers. "What have you done? Tell them this is a mistake." I stood by my car, arms wrapped around myself, unable to speak. Detective Rodriguez approached me, positioning herself between me and Marcus. "You set me up," Marcus continued yelling as the officers pushed him into the back of the car. "After everything I've done for you, you'll regret this." His threats echoed in my ears even after the patrol car drove away. Detective Rodriguez gently touched my arm. "Are you all right?" I nodded, though I was far from all right. "What happens now?" "He'll be processed and held for arraignment. Given the nature of the charges and the evidence we have, it's unlikely he'll be granted bail. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" "I'll go to my friend Stephanie's," I said. "I don't think I can stay here." Inside the house, I packed a suitcase with essential items while an officer stood nearby there to protect me in case Marcus had accomplices we didn't know about. Everything in the home felt tainted now, every surface potentially hiding more secrets, more evidence of the double life my husband had led. The next day, I attended Marcus's arraignment. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching as he entered in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs linking his wrists. He looked smaller, somehow diminished, without his expensive suits and confident smile. The charges were read: multiple counts of administering controlled substances, sexual assault, possession of illegal substances with intent to distribute, and invasion of privacy through unauthorized recording. When the judge denied bail, citing flight risk and danger to the community, Marcus's face drained of color. He spotted me as he was being led out, and the hatred in his eyes made me flinch. This man who had vowed to love and protect me now looked at me as if he wanted me dead. In the days that followed, more victims came forward. Women who had met Marcus at bars, through dating apps, or at professional events. Women who had experienced blackouts or gaps in memory after spending time with him. Some had suspected something was wrong, but blamed themselves or alcohol. Others had no idea until the police contacted them. I met with several of these women brought together by the prosecutor's office for a victim support group. We sat in a circle in a sterile conference room, sharing our stories. I was different from the others, yet the same. We had all been betrayed by Marcus, all been deceived by his charm, and manipulated by his calculated cruelty. Lisa, a marketing executive who had met Marcus at a business conference, spoke through tears. I always prided myself on being smart, on having good judgment about people. How did I miss this? How did I not see what he was? Because he was skilled at hiding it. I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. He fooled me too, and I lived with him for 7 years. Another woman, Rachel, reached over and took my hand. You're the reason he was caught. If you hadn't been brave enough to investigate, to go to the police, how many more of us would there be? Their gratitude was a balm to my wounded spirit, but it couldn't erase the shame I felt. Shame that I had chosen this man, loved him, planned a family with him. Shame that I had missed the signs for so long while he hurt others. During the investigation, more disturbing facts emerged. Marcus had a sealed juvenile record for voyeurism and a complaint filed by a college girlfriend that had been settled out of court. He had managed to hide these from me throughout our relationship, carefully constructing his image as the perfect husband. As the case gained attention, reporters began calling. The story was sensational, successful businessman leading double life, drugging women, documenting his crimes. Some reporters framed it as a cautionary tale about trust and appearances. Others focused on the technological aspects, how I had used digital tools to uncover the truth. I declined all interviews, but still found myself the subject of public scrutiny. People I barely knew approached me in grocery stores or coffee shops, offering sympathy or worse, questions about intimate details of my marriage. Marcus's family was another source of pain. His parents, who had always treated me like a daughter, couldn't accept the truth about their son. His mother called me sobbing, accusing me of fabricating evidence to punish Marcus for some imagined slight. His father sent a cold email stating they were hiring the best criminal defense attorney money could buy. They don't want to believe it, Alicia explained when I showed her the email. No parent wants to believe their child is capable of such things. Give them time. The evidence is overwhelming. But time didn't seem to change their perspective. As the trial date approached, they doubled down on their support for Marcus, appearing at every hearing, sitting directly behind him, glaring at me across the courtroom. Their loyalty would have been admirable if it weren't enabling a predator. The prosecutor, Sarah Jenkins, was a formidable woman in her 50s who specialized in sexual assault cases. She met with me regularly to prepare for my testimony, warning me that Marcus's defense would likely try to paint me as a vindictive wife, fabricating charges out of jealousy. They'll attack your credibility, she warned. They'll question your methods of gathering evidence, suggest you planted it. Are you prepared for that? I have to be, I replied. For all those women, for myself. As predicted, the defense strategy was aggressive. Marcus's attorney, a sharply dressed man with a reputation for getting wealthy clients acquitted, portrayed Marcus as the victim of a digital frame-up by a wife who discovered his infidelity and wanted revenge. When it was my turn to testify, I felt every eye in the courtroom on me as I took the oath. Marcus stared at me from the defense table, his expression unreadable. His parents sat behind him, his mother dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, his father's face a mask of disapproval. For 4 hours, I answered questions about our marriage, about how I had discovered the evidence, about every step I had taken to document Marcus's crimes. The defense attorney tried repeatedly to rattle me, to catch me in contradictions, to suggest I had violated Marcus's privacy illegally. Mrs. Wilson, he asked with exaggerated patience, isn't it true that you accessed your husband's personal computer without his knowledge or consent? Yes, I admitted. After finding drugs and condoms in his pocket when we were trying to conceive a child. And you installed a tracking device on his vehicle. Yes, to confirm he wasn't where he claimed to be on multiple occasions. So you admit to stalking and spying on your husband? The prosecutor objected, and the judge sustained it, but the implication hung in the air. I took a deep breath. I took steps to document my husband's activities after finding evidence he was drugging women, I stated clearly. I did so because I feared for those women's safety, and because I knew no one would believe me without proof. By the time I stepped down from the witness stand, I was exhausted but unbowed. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes anymore. His attorney's attempts to undermine me had failed, and we all knew it. One by one, other victims testified. Their stories formed a damning pattern that no amount of legal maneuvering could explain away. The technical evidence the drugs found in our home, the detailed notes on Marcus's computer, the lab analysis of the pills, all of it created an insurmountable case. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning their verdict guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Marcus to 15 years in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 10 years. As the sentence was read, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a profound relief that he could no longer hurt anyone else. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by other survivors of Marcus's crimes, I faced a barrage of questions from reporters. I gave a brief statement thanking the prosecutor's office and the police for their diligent work and expressing hope that the case would encourage other victims of similar crimes to come forward. Then I walked away from the cameras, away from the courthouse, away from the last chapter of my life with Marcus. The healing process began slowly, painfully. I started with practical matters, filing for divorce, putting our house on the market, sorting through possessions to determine what was contaminated by memories and what could be salvaged. The divorce was finalized quickly, given the circumstances. I received the house and most of our assets, but I couldn't bear to live in the space we had shared. I sold it below market value just to be free of it, using part of the proceeds to rent a small apartment across town while I figured out my next steps. I struggled with insomnia, with anxiety, with a deep sense of shame that logic told me was unwarranted, but emotion insisted was deserved. How could I have lived with a predator and not known? How could I have been so blind? My therapist, Dr. Levine, helped me work through these questions in our weekly sessions. Manipulators like Marcus are expert at compartmentalizing, she explained. They show their victims only what they want them to see. The fact that you uncovered the truth speaks to your strength, not your failure. Gradually, I began rebuilding. I threw myself into my design work, finding comfort in creativity, in making something beautiful from nothing. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, strengthening those relationships that had endured despite my absence. Stephanie became my rock during this period. She let me cry on her couch at 2 a.m, brought me food when I forgot to eat, and never once said, "I told you so," about her early suspicions of Marcus. 6 months after the trial, I decided I needed a complete change of environment. I accepted a job offer from a design firm in Portland, Oregon, packed what remained of my belongings into my car, and drove north to start fresh in a city where no one knew my story. Portland embraced me with its quirky charm and progressive spirit. I found an apartment in a converted industrial building with high ceilings and huge windows that flooded the space with light. I adopted a cat from the local shelter, a one-eyed orange tabby that the staff told me had been overlooked by other adopters because of his imperfection. We recognized something in each other. I think both of us survivors of trauma, both of us learning to trust again. At my new job, I poured my experiences into creating designs that resonated with authenticity and emotion. My colleagues noticed my clients appreciated it, and within a year, I was promoted to creative director, leading a team of younger designers. During this time, I began attending a support group for survivors of intimate partner betrayal. Sitting in a circle with other women who had experienced different versions of the same pain, I found solace in shared understanding. Their stories were not identical to mine. Some had endured physical abuse, others, financial exploitation. but the thread of betrayal by someone they had trusted completely ran through all our narratives. Monica, the group facilitator, encouraged us to reclaim our stories, to see ourselves not as victims, but as warriors who had fought their way out of dangerous situations. "You're not defined by what was done to you," she would remind us. "You're defined by how you chose to survive and thrive afterward." Inspired by the strength I witnessed in these women, I decided to use my design skills to create something meaningful. I developed a website and mobile app specifically for survivors of intimate partner betrayal, providing resources, legal information, and a secure platform for sharing stories. I named it Phoenix Rising, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of destruction. What began as a passion project soon became a nonprofit organization. I secured funding from domestic violence prevention foundations, assembled a board of directors that included therapists, legal experts, and fellow survivors. Phoenix Rising expanded to offer emergency housing assistance therapy scholarships and legal aid to women leaving dangerous relationships. Speaking at a fundraiser for the organization 2 years after Marcus's conviction, I shared my story publicly for the first time. Standing at the podium, looking out at a room full of supporters, I felt a sense of purpose that had been missing since my world collapsed. The condoms and pill I found in my husband's pocket that day saved not just my life, but potentially the lives of countless other women, I told the audience. They forced me to see a truth I had been unconsciously avoiding, to take action when it would have been easier to look away. Later that evening, a young woman approached me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Your story gave me the courage to leave," she whispered, pressing a small, folded note into my hand. "Thank you for showing me it's possible to rebuild." That note joined dozens of others I had received since launching Phoenix Rising, each one a testament to the ripple effects of speaking truth, of refusing to be silenced by shame. On the 3rd anniversary of Marcus's conviction, I received a call from Detective Rodriguez. She had moved to a different department but had kept track of the case. "I thought you should know," she said. "2 more women have come forward from before your marriage. The statute of limitations hasn't expired. There will be additional charges." I thanked her for letting me know, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to never hear Marcus's name again, to excise him completely from my life and memory. Another part recognized that each new case brought to light was another step toward justice, another survivor acknowledged. 4 years after leaving Seattle, I met Daniel, an architect with kind eyes and patient hands, who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. We moved slowly, each of us carrying baggage from past relationships. I was transparent about my history, about my triggers and fears. He shared his own story of a marriage that had ended due to his ex-wife's addiction issues, the helplessness he had felt trying to save someone who didn't want saving. On our 1-year anniversary, sitting at a table overlooking the Willamette River, Daniel took my hand. "I know what happened to you makes trust difficult," he said. "I want you to know I'm not in a hurry. We can take all the time you need." I looked at this gentle man who had never pushed, never demanded, never made me feel less than whole despite my scars. "I'm learning that trust isn't something you have or don't have," I replied. "It's a choice you make every day with full awareness of the risks." Today, 5 years after finding those damning items in Marcus's pocket, I can say I've built a life I never could have imagined in those dark days. Phoenix Rising serves thousands of women annually. My design career has flourished. Daniel and I share a home with 2 cats and plans for a future together. The woman I was before, the trusting, naive Clarinda, who believed in perfect marriages and happily ever afters, is gone. In her place stands someone stronger, someone who understands that real love requires vigilance and courage, someone who knows the value of trusting her instincts. The condom and pill I found that day saved not just my life, but possibly the lives of countless other women. Sometimes, the most painful discoveries lead us to our greatest purpose. What's your intuition telling you today? Don't ignore it like I almost did. If something feels wrong in your relationship, pay attention. Take pictures, save receipts, trust yourself. And remember to like, subscribe, and share this story if it resonated with you. Your comment below might help another person find the courage to face a difficult truth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may you find the strength to follow your own path to healing, whatever that looks like for you.